at my hairdo, you guys. Like, I finally took a shower today and did my hair, and my hair just looks so, like, such bullshit. And I'm like, why did I even do my hair? That's the question. And I'm getting my hair cut tomorrow, and I'm gonna be like, could you just chop this shit off? I'm, like, over it. It doesn't look cute at all. I can't see my neighbor's dog out here. I mean, look at it. It's just such a swoop. I wish I had brought a hat with me. I'm half tempted to go back and get a hat. Should I go back and get a hat? I'm gonna be more comfortable if I have a hat. Isn't that so dumb, you guys? I almost grabbed my pink hat when I was walking out the door, too. There's this huge brick gate that, like, envelops our entire neighborhood. Now I'm like, okay, your hair doesn't look that bad. But it's still driving me nuts. It's like swooped. I hate it. I hate my hair. I'll be right back. Okay, I feel much better. I know it looks like every other day, like, did you even take a shower and do your hair? But I feel better, and that's all that matters, so. I don't know how I'm going to get my hair cut tomorrow, but I am going to tell her to cut it short. I'm over this. Anyway. It is 8:57, and I am on the way to my meeting, which is at 9:30, because it's a candlelight meeting. I have had a fantastic day today. And when you hear this, you'll die. Okay, so last night, well, you saw this on yesterday's vlog, that I went to bed early. So last night I fell asleep at like 11 o'clock, 11:15. We watched American Horror Story, and then I was gonna get up and drive around and finish my vlog and listen to my audiobook. But I was like, I'm just gonna lay down for like a half an hour, and I woke up this morning at 8:30. So, come on. I got up this morning at 8:30, and nobody ever texts me all day long until I'm doing this vlog, and then people text me left and right. So I got up at 8:30, I did bills, and went and got coffee, went to the library, went to the post office, went to the bookstore, went to Fresh Time to get groceries for the day, came home, made my videos, then I had my counseling appointment, which went fantastic, and I talked to him about step work that I'm doing, 12-step work. And then, let's see. Okay, then I came home, then I uploaded the rest of my videos, and then I ate my dinner early, like 4:30, and watched Dance Moms, and, you guys are like, we love the press conference of your days. Do you really? Is it so exciting? Oh my God. And then I took a nap with the babies. We took like a 2-hour nap. It was fantastic. And, so then I got up a little bit ago. Alex is with his friend that he works for one day a week doing contractual, like, stuff, and her brother, and they're getting ready to go out to eat dinner. And, yeah, so his friend's brother is like, has this amazing house and is like selling it. So they're like over there with the realtor right now. And, then they're gonna go somewhere and have like a late dinner, I guess. So, and then I'm going, oh my God, my phone is like literally just going off. And then, yeah, I'm going to my meeting, and then I'm gonna come home, and I have not been on a live stream in like a week, so I have to get on it tonight. Because I keep saying that I'm gonna do it. And I'm awake tonight, and I feel like focused, and so I'm excited about that. And I'm gonna get a cup of coffee when I get to the meeting. Yeah, and it's just been a really good day. Oh, I sat on the front porch and read for like an hour. I read a story from Summer Days and Summer Nights by Stephanie Perkins. I got 2 books at the library. One is called I'm like, people, who is that? And one is called The Graces, and it's been a book that's been like on my want to read forever, and I can't find it anywhere, and so I wanted to read that. And I actually, the last My phone is going off like crazy. And I literally do not get texts from anybody all day long. And The Graces by, I think, Laura Eve. It's got really mixed reviews. It's about this, like, family of witches or something like that. So anyway, it's a young adult book. I got that. What was the second book that I got? I don't even know. It was something that wasn't new. I know that because I was going through. But let me tell you guys what was so exciting, right? So I really want, okay, so when I was a kid, you've heard me tell the stories about, like, when we would go out of town to Chicago or Michigan or whatever for the weekend, that my dad would take me to a bookstore and he'd be like, you can get whatever you want to get, right? Well, I remember this one weekend we were going to Chicago and it was, like, really rainy and whatever. I think we were actually there used to be, like, a 6th floor, like, B. Dalton bookstore or something. Do you guys remember in the Water Tower, if you went to Chicago back in the day, there used to be a bookstore and it was like 3 or 4 stories inside the Water Tower, and we would go there. And so anyway, he was like, you can get any book that you want. Well, I got this book and it was called The Day the Sea Rolled Back, and I looked it up today, and I don't know how I remember it, but it's about this kid and his dad, and they, like, go to find all this, like, sunken treasure. Okay, by the way, I've been watching the Goonies in the background. It is such a Goonies kind of day in Indiana. Good enough. So, I recorded the Goonies about a week ago, or whatever it was on earlier this week or something, and I told Alex, I said, do not delete the Goonies. That is my, until December 1st. That's my fall show. So I had that on the background the whole day that I was doing stuff today. But I've always kind of loved that, like, treasure chase kind of stuff. Like, that's very exciting to me. Maybe at one point I'll become a treasure hunter. I don't know. So anyway, but this book was about the sea rolled back, and they were looking for, like, treasure or whatever. Well, it's by Mickey Spillane. Is it Mickey Spillane, the one that wrote, like, all those Hollywood, like, crime novels? So anyway, they didn't have it at the library. I looked it up, but while I was there, I was like, I'm gonna look up my own book. So I put in Peter Monn. You guys, my book is in the Indianapolis Public Library system. You can order it and everything. I was so excited, and I didn't, like, donate a copy or anything. Like, no, ma'am. So I was so excited. I was like, I cannot believe that my book is actually in the library. Like, you guys have no idea, like, what a big deal that is to me. That's, like, a bigger deal to me than, like, going into a Barnes & Noble and seeing my book there. Because I know how all that works. It's sometimes harder to get your book in the library. It means that either somebody bought my book and then, like, that works for the library system because of, like, ratings it's gotten or whatever, or it's been on a list, which my book has actually been on a lot of, like, LGBTYA lists, so it may be on there for that, or it means that somebody requested my book, and if enough people request a book at the library, they purchase the book. So that may be what it is. Oh my God, I was so excited though. So it was a good day. I love going to the library. It's just, like, such a simple place. Like, the whole idea of the library, right? Like, loaning a library book out. You know, like, you go in there, this traffic on the way home, like, what is going on? Like, I cannot get stuck in that on the way home. So anyway, the whole idea of a library, being at the library, and that there's all these books and all these worlds and all these stories, and you can take any of them out for free, and you just give them your library card. I love the whole idea of the library. I think it's fantastic. So, now that I am a responsible library patron, because times in my life I was not responsible with my library card and my library books. So, but now I am. I take the library very, very seriously. I don't like it when you talk loud in a library either. You're not supposed to do that. I will say this though, the librarians still are kind of surly. Like, if I worked in a library, I'd wear, like, really colorful ties and, like, sweater vests, and I'd be like that friendly librarian, you know, uncle. They're very surly that work in the library. Like, they hate their jobs. I mean, they're basically now like a step up from the B&B. And I'm like, you know, you should be a little excited about what you're doing, but they're not, so. Oh well. I mean, they are like, have you guys, are your library, maybe it's just the library that I go to. Do you guys use your library? I feel like this is what kills me, is like when I talk to my friends and they're like, I didn't even know that we had a library near us. And I'm like, okay, first of all, but like it kills me, right? That like people don't use their library card. I mean, and even if you don't like read books, there's movies, there's anime, there's music, there's magazines, there's computer access, there's all kinds of things that you can do at the library. I feel like this should be a sponsorship for the library. I should start getting paid for some of this shit I talk about so positively, like fucking Audible in the library. I mean, listen to me say fucking Audible in the library, but like Audible, the library, Bob Evans, the dollar store. I mean, this stuff that I really stand behind and believe. Like, these people should be paying me good money for endorsements, because I don't have to do that. Can you imagine getting a check from the library? I would so love it. So anyway, but I do believe in endorsing products that I really, really like. Like, let me tell you, here's something for you. Don't buy, I'm not a big believer in Yankee candles, okay? And I never have been. I just don't think they smell very strong. And I feel like for $25 for a candle, or if you go to an outlet and you get them for $13 or $16 or whatever, you can go into Walmart and you can get a $5.99 candle that smells just as fine, okay? It's the idea in your head of needing a Yankee candle that smells like a rose, and they call it Summer Rose Night, and of course you have to have it because it's a different color pink than just a regular rose. It's bullshit. But let me tell you, I used to do it back in the day too, when my ex and I would go into Cracker Barrel once a week. But I was so excited because I'm obsessed with those wax melts. Y'all know that, right? Like, I have 2 of those wax melt things, and by the end of the week I'm gonna have a 3rd one. I want one for upstairs too, okay? So I went through the Meijer. Walmart section is good, but if you have a Meijer where you live, I mean, it is 100 times better. The Meijer wax melt section is literally phenomenal, okay? I mean, they have, I'm not even saying that word, like, literally they have like hundreds, okay? And the majority of them are $1.99. And they have some that are $2.99 and some that are $3.99, but those are like the real fancy dudes, right? So you can get a Yankee Candle one, and the last time I said this, people were like, well, you can use them more than once. So you can get a Yankee Candle thing, right? That's like this round that you put in there, okay? It's like $2.99 or $1.99 for a round thing like this, that even if you snapped it in half and used it twice, that's about the same size it would be, like 2 of the cubes for the $1.99, the other ones. I put this cube on there. I put this little round pizza pie thing. I was so excited about it. It did not smell at all. I mean, that whole thing melted for hours. You could not, I mean, you could stand 3 feet away from it and you couldn't smell it. And I was like, this is some total BS, right? I will not buy any more of that Yankee Candle stuff. And that Burt's Bees stuff, it's just the same. That Burt's Bees, those candle waxes, they don't smell either. Go buy the cheap stuff. All day long, I believe in the cheap. What I usually do, like with something like that, is so like I went and I bought like 2 different kinds of the $1.99. I bought this Blueberry Merlot. It's my absolute favorite smell. And then I bought like a pumpkin spice. Like, I love like kitchen smells. Now Alex likes like clean scents, like lemon and, you know, Buddha Sunday or whatever. So we got all that too. But I bought 2 of these $1.99 ones, and they smelled so good. Like, they filled the entire house. So I was like, okay, so these $1.99 dudes work. So that's why I kept on buying those. You know, and I think if you can buy stuff for cheaper and it works, it's like I buy all my cleaning supplies at the dollar store. Why wouldn't you? It's $1, okay, for the same products, and probably better than products that you would buy at like, and you guys, I'm like a clean freak. Like, my house is pretty spotless. For the same products that you'll buy up in like Walmart for $3.99 or $4.99, I mean, that's you're saving like a ridiculous amount of money. If you buy 4 bottles of cleaner for $1 each, that's $4, okay? Versus, let's say, a minimum of $3.99, which it probably would be more than that for a bottle of Windex at Walmart. I have no idea how much it is. But let's say it's 4, okay? You're saving, like, let's say if that was $16 for 4 bottles, you're saving, what is that, $12? I ain't got my glasses on, I can't do math. But you know what I mean? Like, $12 is a good amount of money. You can't get coupons that'll save you $12 up at the Walmart. Let's be for real. But back in the day, I wouldn't stop at the Dollar General, or I would think it was junk or all this kind of stuff. But you have to look. It doesn't have everything that's great, but it has a lot of good stuff in there, you know? I believe in it. Oh my Lord. I'm listening to my audiobook, The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. Oh my God, I have all these text messages. And it is so good, you guys. I am almost exactly halfway done with it. I want to finish it by Friday. So, yeah, that's my plan. And then I don't know what audiobook I'm going to listen to next. I've still got 3 weeks left of September of audiobooks, so I've got to pick out so that when I go into Halloween month, October, Halloween month, that I'm listening to all scary books. Yes, 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 yes. All right, you guys. Well, I'm going to get off here for just a little bit, and I will vlog later. I love you. Bye. Hello. God, the construction in Indianapolis is like hellacious. And everything's shut down, and that being said, I feel very spiritual. I'm drinking some 12-step coffee. I wish I could tell you guys, like, so I don't know how to say this any other way, but there's like, it's not a set of rules, but it's a set of guidelines to every 12-step program. But basically one of the things they talk about is that you don't talk about certain, it's like Fight Club. The first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. It's kind of similar to that, which is funny now that I think back about it, that Fight Club starts in a 12-step meeting. Anyway, but there are a set of guidelines called traditions, and the traditions are what keep 12-step programs intact, so that there's no hierarchy, there's no leadership, there's no ruling governing body, those kinds of things, right? And everything's done on unanimous vote, and it's very cool how it works. If the rest of the world worked that way, it would be it would be amazing, right? So I'm going to try to say this because I'm very excited about this, but I'm going to say this in a way that I will be protecting of all of that. So I talk on here a lot about how I have a service commitment that I do 1 day a month for my home group. And a home group is a meeting that you make a commitment to go to every week. So within home groups, there are service positions that people hold, right? And within certain 12-step programs, in my 12-step program, there's two major factions. One that controls like a certain area within the city, and one that controls like a greater area within the state. I don't know how to say that. And then they do voting that then goes to like a national level on making decisions about money and literature and helping people and all different kinds of things. I'm doing a really piss poor job of explaining this, which is why we don't talk about what specific program it is, because I'm not a representative of that program. So anyway, but when I was at my meeting on Sunday, when I was at the service commitment thing on Sunday, hold on a second. They announced all of these, like, within that service position that I have, the meeting, it's like 300 people. They announced like chair positions for committees, and then one of the things that they talked about was like a 3-year commitment of basically where you would be like co-chair, chair, and then something else at the end of it. And I know it's hard to believe from my vlogs and YouTube and all this kind of stuff, but I'm very nervous. I have a lot of social anxiety. I've talked a lot about this on here, but I'm also constantly challenging myself to get out of that. And the first time that I ever went to this thing, I had to stand up in front of everybody and like say my name and like what meeting I was from, and I was a nervous wreck. But over time, like, this has been something that like I get so excited to go to, even though like I complain about going, because when I leave, I feel so full of soul, so full of spirit, that I just like to see that many people sober within one place is really a cool thing. I mean, and not like a state convention or anything, but it's really cool. So the person that is the chair is a friend of mine, and I had talked to my sponsor about possibly taking some kind of service position for a committee there, getting involved, but this one that was like a 3-year commitment was something I was very interested in. So she happened to be at my meeting tonight, which is like interesting because she never like is at this meeting, right? and I kind of feel like this is like a God. If you don't have any religious or spiritual, I'm not a religious person, I'm a spiritual person, but if you don't have any spiritual beliefs, that's totally cool. But for me, I believe in like, there aren't coincidences, and there was like this God moment thing, and she was there, and so I was like, hey, I'm like really interested in some of these positions, and so she went through all of them with me, and then she talked about this last one, and I said, yeah, that's kind of the one that I'm interested in. She goes, that's really interesting because the co-chair position just opened. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'm not so interested in this anymore if it's something that I could just slide right into, because that means I would be the chair in January if they considered me. Now, there's several people up for it, so it's not like a shoo-in that I would get it. But I sat there through the whole meeting, and I was like, I think this is something I'm supposed to do. I think I'm supposed to get more involved. I think I'm supposed to get out of myself and take some risks. And what's the positives versus the negatives? You know, the negatives is that I would be scared to do it. I wouldn't know what I would do. I might mess it up. But somebody will tell me, you did this wrong. Here's how you do it in the future. The positives are I would meet a lot of people. I would get experience through it. I would be more involved. It would be a better commitment for me, you know, just in sobriety, to stay sober and to help other people. And I thought, no, I'm doing this. And so after the meeting, I told her, I said I'd be really interested. She was so excited. She was like, now a couple other people are interested. So I don't know what will happen, but we'll find you something. There will be some way for you to get more involved. And I got so excited. I was like, this is the coolest thing. Like, I'm so excited. I want to be more involved, you know, and it's taken me 45 years to realize, and this is where I talk about like not going to prom or homecoming or sports events in high school. Like, I don't feel like I missed out on anything by not doing those things. But in retrospect, I kind of wish I had done those things just to be like more involved. Do you know what I mean? Like, just to be part of something. Like, I've always felt like I was on the outside looking in instead of actually being a part of something. And what it's taken me so long to realize is, if you want to be part of something, you have to put yourself there, you know? You have to volunteer your service. You know, like Alex does so, I mean, he is on so many different committees and things in Indianapolis, and there's this thing every year called Zubilation, which is a fundraiser for the zoo. The tickets are really expensive, but he always wants to go, and it's not something I want to go to. So, you know, he takes a suit with him, and he goes and volunteers his time so he gets a ticket into it. And, you know, it's something that he absolutely loves, and he is really part of stuff. And I think it's time in my life that I become part of stuff, you know? I think it's time that I quit using excuses of fear and being afraid and what will people think of me that are stopping me from really experiencing life, and putting those things aside and saying, just try, Peter, try to do some different things. You know, had I never done that with my YouTube channel, I wouldn't be here today. Being able to make this vlog and the videos that I make, which are I mean, I love YouTube. Like, I love every aspect of it, you know, and I talk all the time about, even if I didn't make a cent, which the money is so secondary to me, and I'm not gonna lie, like, the money's nice, but like, it's so secondary to me that, like, you know, I sent a message about a sponsored video for BookTube to review these trailers, and I'd done one before, and the guy's like, are you still interested? And I was like, yeah. But the thing is, even if he wasn't gonna pay me a cent, like, I would still do it because I think that's so fun. But I didn't know that it was this cool or that it was this fun until I took a risk and I turned the camera on. So, you know, this for me is just like a moment in life where I have to take a look at it and go, okay, Peter, here's an opportunity to take a leap. Put fear aside and just enjoy the moment, you know, waiting to exhale, so to speak. So I just wanted to share that with you guys because I'm really excited about it. And on some level, no matter what it is, I will be getting more involved. And I think that's a really cool thing, you know, and I'm really proud of myself for just going with my gut and saying, just do this thing, just do it. So that's that. And I just wanted to share that with you. I'm going to pick up Tanya. She leaves for Florida tomorrow, and for her family reunion thing that she goes to every year. And then I will be back in a little bit. Bye. Hello. So it's later. I actually drove up to the casino tonight because I paid all my bills this month and I had a little extra that wasn't going towards anything. So I was like, I think I'll go to the casino. And I'm actually leaving. I have my tip money for my hair appointment tomorrow, and then I have $100 put back in my account. And I was like way down. I was gonna leave with nothing, not even my tip money for tomorrow. And this woman next to me was like hitting and hitting and hitting. She was so nice. She reminded me of my Aunt Kathy a little bit. And she was like hitting and hitting and hitting, and I was like, God, could I hit something? And then like I hit like, I got up to like, I hit like 3 things in a row, and I got to like 8. You guys are like, we could care less. I hit like 3 things in a row, and I got to like $80. And then I hit like a 20 and then like a 10, and so I was at like $110, and I was like, just take your money and go. It's 2:30, go home, get some sleep. So yeah, so I'm kind of proud of myself. Instead of sitting there and blowing all my money, I was like, just go. You know what, you've got some extra money, put it in your savings account, which I already do with my money. So when I have extra, which is not always very often, I try to put extra into my savings account, because you never know when you're going to need that. You know what I mean? I'm not going to talk for a really long time because I want to listen to my audiobook. I have like 5 hours left of it. It is so good. If you guys are looking for like a timepiece young adult novel, look at my hairdo now. But it is, I will say it is LGBT fiction, kind of. The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee is really good. And it's different than anything I've ever listened to. It's about this brother and sister and this guy's friend, and they're like lord and lady of this, like, I don't know. It's like, it takes place in like the King of France era, but you know, Louis, the King of France. I don't know which Louis. They even make a joke about that at one point and say there's been so many Louis or something like that. But then it gets very kind of like, I don't even know how to explain this, but it kind of reminds me of the Da Vinci Code a little bit. Like, but I don't want to say why, because I don't want to ruin it for anybody that's going to listen to it or read it. But it becomes very kind of like this suspense thriller, but with this backstory of this, and what I'm about to say is not going to ruin it for you, because you learn this right on. Like, the main character's like in love with his best friend. And, but it's interesting, like, the things they talk, I trim, every time I trim my beard, I always like cut around here, but like, it still like feels like it's going in my nose. It drives me crazy. But anyway, it's interesting, like, some of the topics they talk about, because like, so he has a conversation with his sister. Like, I would never spoil a book or a movie or a TV show. I just want you to know, like, I'm really against that, so this won't ruin it. Like, him wanting his best friend to be with him and like, and being in love with him, not just sexually, is like the main theme of the book. But it's interesting because, you know, this is a period piece, and at one point his sister's like, oh, his dad says to him, because he's like a drinker, and he's like, even though he's like 17 and he's like a partier, and so his dad's like, you guys are like, I cannot follow you. So he goes on this tour of Europe, right, with his best friend and his sister. They're like taking her to this finishing school, and that's kind of funny all of its own. But I need my hair cut so bad. But anyway, I need to get custom-made hats that aren't sponsoring other people, but that are sponsoring Peter Monn is what I need to get. So anyway, I love a good trucker hat like this, just an old school trucker hat. I mean, this is like such a cheap trucker hat, but it's $35 at Ultra. Can you believe that? So anyway, and it never sits on my head straight, but I love trucker hats, which is so funny because when I was growing up, my dad always wore trucker hats and like had a beard. I look very much like my dad. So, and he has a beard now, but he didn't for a long time. He just had a mustache. I've never just had a mustache. So anyway, it's so funny because like people see me, and like my aunt used to say to me all the time, she'd be like, oh my God, every time I see you, you look more and more like your dad. But anyway, so he's like on this tour of Europe before he has to come over and take over his dad's estate. And so he's like thinking it's going to be one big romp with his best friend. Well, they send this like person along with them to take care of, to like be the chaperone. And his dad even says to him, you know, like, and when you come back, if I find you, like, I can't, mucking around with boys, I'm done with you. Because, like, at that time, I mean, and even today, like, homosexuality was so, you know, like, frowned upon. And so his sister at one point says to him, like, have you ever been in love? And he's like, yes. And she's like, with a man or with a woman? And he's like, both. And she's like, are you in love with anybody right now? And he doesn't say anything. And she says, like, Percy, the best friend. And so she goes, but you know that's not possible because you're a sodomite. And he was like, well, what does that have to do with you? They have this whole conversation that's very interesting in the context of the time that it's being told, because he's trying to explain to her that, like, she's like, but it is a choice. You do have a choice in who you're, like, with, like, hooking up with. And he's like, it's not a choice who I want to be with or who I want to be in love with. And she doesn't understand it. And it's just, and she's very, very intellectual, but she struggles understanding this piece. And they use the word sodomite in the book. And it's like such this poignant moment, you know? And it's interesting that we're talking about this time. And I was really thinking about it, you know, this time in Europe back then. And I was thinking, like, as much as we want to complain about marriage equality and, you know, like, rights, and hey, and I'm the first one to be an activist for those things, okay, because I just believe that they're human rights. But back then, it wasn't even a question. It wasn't even like, you know, we all know that, you know, people did things behind closed doors, but it's like, and he talks very much about that in the book, but it's like, they couldn't live together as husband and husband, or boyfriend and boyfriend, or, you know, wife and wife, or girlfriend and girlfriend. And so it's interesting, some of the, I don't want to call them luxuries, but some of the advances that we've made that we take for granted. Even me, you know, that, I mean, I came out in 90, and so we're 20 years out from Stonewall, and I can remember at that time, people really still talked a lot about Stonewall, and I don't really talk much about this on my channel, but, you know, it's interesting because I came out at the end of the AIDS era, and I remember seeing this movie called Longtime Companion, and I still to this day love this movie. If you've never seen it, see if you can find it. It is fantastic. It was on Netflix for a long time, but I don't think it is anymore. And, you know, I've had several friends of mine that have died of AIDS, and I've had a lot of friends of mine that are HIV positive. And when I came out, it was like, you were either an intravenous drug user or you were gay. That's how people got AIDS. And, I mean, that's what the society thought, or that's what, you know, the media portrayed. And so I can remember coming out and going to, like, gay bars, which I think is a rite of passage for a lot of gay people. It definitely was for me, and it was a huge part of my, like, coming out process, going to gay bars. I had a fake ID when I was 18, and before I had a fake ID, I was carrying drag queens' bags of drag into drag bars so that I could get into bars. And, you know, that was what we did. And I remember there was like 3 of us. This guy, Toby, who I still talk to off and on today. He lives in a different city, but we're friends on Instagram. I hate when people say that, we're friends on Facebook, but, like, that is the extent of it, really, unless I see him and then I'm like, Toby, you know? And then this guy, Brian, that he ended up dating for a long time, and I have no idea where he is. But the 3 of us, you know, were, like, the only, like, guys our age that weren't drag queens, that were going to these drag shows, you know, God, 5 nights a week. And that would be how we got into the bar, and then we would just stay in the bar. And then eventually, like, that summer, I got a fake ID, and then I could get in anywhere. But I remember going to bars and there being huge bowls of condoms and lube on the bar, and, like, these safety packets when you would leave. And I, honest to God, like, and I wasn't highly promiscuous, but I've had my share of one-night stands. And, the fact, you know, I feel like I lived through that whole era where I saw a resurgence of it. So, you know, okay, so when I came out, I didn't know so many people that were HIV positive, because at that time, the people that were HIV positive had just recently like died of AIDS. Like that was like the pneumonia eras. I'm gonna sound ignorant about a lot of this, but this is just my experience. But that was like the late 80s, where like when you would go and you would see people and they literally looked like what are images of like movies and things like that, right? Or I would hear stories about, oh, so-and-so, oh my God, we loved him and he was such a good friend of ours. There was this one guy named Michael that they would all my friends would talk about, this Michael guy, and he had literally like died like 3 months before I came out. And then I met all these guys and I started hanging out with them. And, but I remember like hooking up with people. There was never a question, ever, about not using a condom. I mean, I cannot remember, at least with where I was, there ever being a question about not using a condom, you know? And, you know, but for the grace of God, I've known several people that I have slept with that, you know, are HIV positive or have passed away from AIDS or AIDS-related complications, and I sit here at 45, HIV negative. So, you know, like, and I don't think that has anything to do with me being a better or worse person than somebody else or taking more or less precautions. It totally could have happened to me. It could have happened the first time I ever had sex with somebody unprotected, or, you know, not using protection for oral sex and things like that. And if this conversation is too much for you, I apologize, but I do think it's an important thing to discuss, especially if you're younger, and especially, you know, like I have a lot of women that watch my videos and a lot of young girls, and if you have gay friends out there, please encourage them to use condoms and protect their life. Their life is more valuable than an hour of sex or 20 minutes of sex. And, you know, about 10 years ago, when I was, you know, just coming out of working in treatment, I started getting calls from, you know, a lot of people that I like, that were younger, that I had worked in treatment, gay and straight, that were finding out that they were HIV positive, and it was just, you know, rattling their world. And we're not the same world that we were 20 years ago in regards to those things. I mean, I think it's not a death sentence today, which it very much was. I think that's how we thought of it back then. And, you know, it's one thing I don't ever joke about. I don't, like, there's a lot of things I don't joke about. I mean, even addiction, I can laugh at some pieces of with myself, but like HIV and AIDS is one thing I do not laugh about, you know? And when I was working in treatment, this is a really scary statistic about an STD. Indianapolis had the highest rate of syphilis in the country. In the country, you guys. You know, and the highest rate of HIV in Indiana at the time was gay men, and number 2 was African American women. And that was because a lot of them were intravenous drug users, or they had gone into prison, or they were sleeping with men that were HIV positive that weren't getting tested. And that, you know, those statistics are scary when you think about single mothers out there and stuff like that. But I don't know, it's a different world today, you know? And I think like people aren't as scared as they used to be, and they want, you know, freedom to show their sexuality, and I understand all that kind of stuff, but, you know, like, I always went with the attitude that no matter who I'm sleeping with, I need to sleep with that person with the attitude that they could have HIV, you know, and that every person that they, and not in a bad way, but just take the precautions and have safer sex, and, you know, that's the risk that you take when you are having sex. And, it's like today, I think we're seeing a resurgence of people being riskier, but I also think we're seeing a resurgence of young people who are staying abstinent until they get married or choose to be in a long-term relationship. And, you know, I think that's a really cool thing, the latter. I wish I had waited. I wish I had waited until I was with, I mean, I had some good times, I'm not gonna lie, but I wish I had waited until, like, the first person that I was with that it meant something, because the first couple times it just didn't mean anything. It was more exploration. And I think the sad thing about that is that, you know, when you're gay and you're coming out, and I didn't have the experience of meeting guys in high school and talking to them and whatever, you know? So the whole thing was very hush-hush, don't talk about it and all this kind of stuff. And I remember my friend Jenny said to me, don't worry about losing your virginity, because once you do, it's this thing that you've just kind of done. And then after that, you're going to want it, but you don't know why you really need it. And it's so true, you know? It's like, I don't know. I just wish I had waited. And, but I'm very thankful that I had a lot of really good friends around me that were older by 5 or 6 years, that I would just be trashed drunk, and they wouldn't let me go home with anybody. You know, they'd take me back and they'd put me, you know, up in their apartment or whatever. I remember these two guys that I was friends with. They were a couple. I think I've told this story on here actually before. And this is not the same Toby. It's a different Toby, but his name was Toby, and I can't remember what his boyfriend's name was for the life of me, but they were really nice, and they were good friends of mine. And I remember I like woke up out of this blackout this one morning, and I heard like, I was like in this weird, like kind of like little room loft on the floor, sleeping on a sleeping bag or makeshift bed or something. And I looked down, and I had on like pajamas, and my clothes were like folded next to me, and I could hear these people like this is some good friends, okay? And I could hear somebody like laughing downstairs, and I smelled like pancakes. And so like I stood up and I like I put my clothes on and I walked downstairs, and it was my friend Toby and his boyfriend, and they were like making me breakfast. And I was like, what did you guys do to me last night? And they were like, we didn't do anything to you. We like gave you pajamas, you changed, we folded your clothes for you. We just wanted to make sure that you had a safe place to be. We didn't let you drive home last night. And I totally did not believe them. I was like, no, you did something. I was like really nasty about it. And they were so cool, you know, about the whole thing. And I remember later I apologized to them because my friend told me, she was like, no, they did take you home, and why would you ever believe that about them? And I just feel blessed that I had such wonderful people around me that cleaned up after my messes, you know, because they didn't have to do that. And then when I was like 19 and a half or 20, I met this girl named Krissa. Hey, Krissa, if you're out there. And she and I were inseparable. We slept in the same queen bed for 2 years straight. And we partied. I mean, we drank and did all kinds of stuff together, baby. And we used to joke about how if we didn't have anybody, this is like an American Horror Story right now too, that if we didn't have anybody by the time we were 30, we're gonna, you know, get married. And I remember like the first day I met her out at the bar, and she was with somebody else, and she got in a fight with this guy, and she came home with me, and she was a nanny. I know I just talked about this not too long ago. She lives in like Berlin now, I think. I talk to her like once a year via email. I love you, Krissa. But anyway, I mean, we drank every day together, and we used to drink like cases of that Zima. Ugh, that Zima, gross. And I remember she was a nanny, and she came home. Well, she came back to my apartment. She called me, she goes, can I come back over to your apartment? And I was like, yeah. She stayed with me that night, and then she went to her job the next day, and she goes, they fired me. They told me they didn't feel like my heart was in the job anymore. And I mean to tell you, like, for that next, like, 3 months, I mean, that's all we did was drink. I don't even know where we came up with money to drink. I remember this one time we said we were going to go to this party, and I said, oh yeah, we'll bring Absolute Vodka, and Chris and I were like, how are we going to buy it? We don't have any money. And I remember I borrowed money from my dad just so I could buy this Absolute Vodka. This one time we were so drunk, we came home, and we were so hungry, and I had no food in my pantry whatsoever. And we just kind of looked at each other, and she goes, I have a box of shells and cheese and some salsa in my car. And I was like, oh my God. And we like ran down to her car, and we got this box of macaroni and cheese and shells and cheese and salsa out, and we made like macaroni and cheese and mixed the salsa in, and we thought it was so good. I remember that. But yeah, we lived together, and she and I actually she got an apartment with me and my boyfriend, but it was really more she and I got an apartment with my boyfriend, 2-bedroom, and my first boyfriend. And then that was just, and that was like responsible life. Okay, so this is what happened. So she and I, like in the midst of our mess, could not hold our life together. So she said, I have to move home with my parents. So she moved home, actually she moved home with her grandfather to like pull her shit together and save some money. And then I just kind of fell down the rabbit hole of problems. And I know she was very worried, and she sent me a lot of money over time. Like, she would send me, like, she was working at Applebee's in Kansas, and she would send me, like, a letter every day with a $20 bill in it because she was so concerned about me. And then when I went to treatment that winter, which she must have left that summer, she called me, or I called her and I said, you have got to get me out of this place. I cannot stay here at Tell. And she was like, okay. And she was like, well, what are we going to do? And I said, we'll drive my car out to LA and we'll sell my car. And I don't know what we'll do then. You know, we'll figure it out. And I really honestly thought, well, I'll prostitute or something. And that's really what I thought. And she was like, okay. And so she called my dad, and this chick was ballsy. And she said, you will go in there and get Peter out. And my dad said to her, he goes, listen, lady, I have had enough of your shit, okay? You have been a moocher and lived there for the last 2 years and not paid a cent, which I think is what he thought, but she was paying me a lot. And he said, and now you live somewhere else. You obviously aren't concerned about him, because if you were really a friend to him, you would realize that his drinking and his drugging is so out of control that he's going to end up dead. So I'm asking you to be a good friend and set some boundaries, and don't do this to him, and don't ever call me again and demand things from me. And he hung up the phone. So I called Krista back, and she was crying, and she was like, your dad's right. She's like, you're out of control. She's like, and I've been a part of it for a really long time, and I cannot be a part of it anymore. So I got sober, and she was a really good friend to me, and she stopped drinking around me. Like, cold stopped drinking. Never went to a 12-step program, but cold stopped drinking. And I mean, to tell you, salt of the earth, this girl was good Judy. And you know what's so hard for me sometimes is, like, she ended up moving. I can't tell the whole story because it's kind of a private story of hers, but she ended up moving after we lived together for a year, and then she moved. So I would have been sober for 2 years. She moved. My first boyfriend and I got my dog. I took my dog 6 weeks later to the kennel because we were going to Cancun with my dad and my stepmom, and that was the day that I met Tanya. I met Tanya 60 days after this girl left, and that to me is a God thing, that, like, you know, like, one friend left and I got another good friend. And, you know, she and Chris and Tanya have never met, and I've always kind of wondered, like, if they would like each other, if they wouldn't. Like, and it's interesting because they're so polar opposites, and they kind of represent two different periods of my life, you know? And I'm getting real emotional because I had this moment a couple months ago where I was like, I don't think I'll ever see Krista again in my life, you know? Like, nobody that she knows lives in Indiana. She doesn't come home to the United States very often. We talk maybe once a year, if that, and I just don't think I'll ever see her again, you know? And it's like, she watched, like, one of my videos, and she sent me a message, email, about a year ago. But it's not the same, you know? Friends change over time, and I don't know, it just breaks my heart, you know, sometimes that people come in your lives and then, you know, but you have to have new people come in your life too, you know? And if she lived here, I'd still see her, I think. I think the last time I saw her, she was, like, visiting her brother, and we weren't living together, we weren't really talking, and I remember she had this yellow pickup truck, and I saw her at the library. We used to go to the library together all the time, and I was like, hey, she was coming in as I was leaving, and I said, hey, I haven't seen you in forever. And she's like, I know, and I was living with my ex at the time. Not my ex that she lived with, my new ex. And I said, I really want you to meet him and, you know, come over and whatever. And she was like, yeah, she was like, I mean, a lot's changed, you know? We're different people today. And I was like, yeah, I know what you mean, but, like, I miss you, you know? She was like, yeah, I miss you too. She was like, we can't go back to that. It's not healthy for either one of us. And I was like, I know, I don't want to go back to that, but I miss you, you know? And she was like, have you ever thought about how much of us was that? Like, the partying? And she was right, you know? She was absolutely right. But doesn't mean I don't miss her. Doesn't mean I didn't have good times when I was partying, because I did. The reason why I'm an alcoholic and an addict is because I love drinking and using drugs for whatever reason, you know? It just didn't work for me anymore. And I think that she tried to be a good friend to me as long as she could without interrupting my sobriety, but I think she knew that if she was gonna stick around, it wouldn't work for me, maybe? I don't know. She was like that. She was very self-sacrificing. But I've only been like that once in my life, and I think that's truly selflessness, is when you walk away from somebody because you know that it would be better for them if you weren't in their life. I've only done that once, and it was that guy that I talked about on here that I found out that was like my very first boyfriend out of treatment, or second boyfriend. But it was like kismet. We were like supposed to be together, you know, and then I found out a couple years ago that he had passed away, and nobody had an obituary for him, nobody had a funeral for him. And I walked away because I thought that was what was best for him. And you know, you don't know. It all seems like shits and giggles at 18, and then you wake up and you're 45 and you're like, people are gone, people live in other countries, and people are dead, and it's like, all of a sudden your life seems very serious, you know? I did not expect to cry on this vlog tonight. You never know what you're getting with me, I guess. And then I had this friend from kindergarten, elementary, junior high, and high school, college, graduate school. We lived one block apart from each other always. And we hadn't talked in 10 years, and I run into a Meyer and we talk for 2 hours and get a fountain Coke, you know, and it's like no time has gone by. So maybe that's what will happen someday with Chris and I don't know. You know, I'm open to that. And I'm open to life, and I think that that's what's so fantastic about life, is just not ever knowing what's going to come tomorrow, you know? Maybe she's watching this video. Maybe you are, Kristen. If you're watching this video, call me. I miss you. You know? And if you're watching this video out there and you're just somebody that hasn't talked to a friend in a while because time has just gone by, pick up the phone and call them. I would if I knew how to get a hold of her. I have no clue, you know? But I do that with a lot of people. Or, like me, you might find out, like, somebody's gone. You can never have that conversation with them again. It's dismal and it's sad and it's tragic, but it's the truth, so. Well, you guys, I have gotten sad too much, so I am going to go and listen to my audiobook for a little bit, and thank you for enduring this tonight. It was kind of actually a nice little trip down memory lane. Alright, I'm gonna get off here. I love you guys. I'll talk to you later.